Welcome to the Pub Sports Radio College Basketball Closing Time Show. It is Tuesday, December 29th. We're approaching the end of the year, thank goodness. I think we're all looking forward to a new year getting upon us, but we're ready to break down college basketball here from a betting perspective, break down this Tuesday college basketball card. Because it's the holiday season, we're in a giving mood here, Connor and I, today. We're going to give you some college football bowl looks and some NBA opinions as well at the end of the show, what we're on in those two sports as well. C-Mac, how are you on this Tuesday?
I'm good. Like you said, I wasn't going to say it, but I like these cards for college and the NBA. So I hope I didn't jinx it, as we were just talking about. But it's better to go and enjoying something than saying, I don't really like it. But it all matters in the end. What you win and lose, how it goes down. So I like it. Let's roll.
All right, we start in the ACC with Miami and Virginia Tech. This is an early tip-off, earlier compared to the rest of the games that are at night. This one's at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. on the West Coast. Virginia Tech, 6-point home favorites, 134.5 the total. Same old issues with Miami in terms of are they in or are they out? Talking about, of course, arguably their two best players, actually, Cameron McGusty and Chris Likes. Both of them expected to be game-time decisions for Miami entering this game. A Miami Hurricanes team that I think when they're fully healthy with this well coached by Jim Larinaga, they can do some damage. They can make some noise. And they're certainly a team I'd rather take points with in the underdog role rather than lay points with. But A, I don't know if those two guys are going to play or not. And B, I really like this Virginia Tech team. I cashed a ticket with them against Clemson in their ACC opener. And they really led wire to wire against a Clemson team that's had a nice start to the season. And Virginia Tech, I like that they've got a pretty solid defensive foundation. They take good shots. They share the ball. They play pretty methodical, but they always look for good shots, and they're very well coached as well. Mike Young, we know the job he did at Wofford for years, and he's come to Virginia Tech, and I think they played really solid basketball considering he's still trying to get his players and his recruits in here with this program. So it's a Virginia Tech team I like enough that I don't want to bet against them here. Plus, I've got Miami not knowing exactly if they're going to have their two best players on the floor for this game. So it's a pass for me, Connor. Did you have any opinion here, Miami for Virginia Tech?
Yeah, without those two guys in, it's hard to take. I want to take Miami with the points, but those guys mean so much to him, and he's questionable. Likes or Leaks, however you want to. I don't know his last name, but he's their guy. He's their best player on that team. Everything to me revolves around him, and I like this Virginia Tech team. I don't know if I'm going to get to the window with this one. It's just a little high at 6.5, and he's questionable. So I'm just going to wait, and you're probably not going to know till game time on him. So if you're going to bet this, stay close to that. If he plays, there might be a little value with the 6.5 with Miami. But both teams, especially Miami, low scoring, especially if he's out, they really will struggle maybe to score. So that way, I got to lean a little bit if he's out to Vav Tech -6 here, but you just keep watching it because if he's in and out, they still have him listed as questionable. So we'll see.
All right, Florida State, Clemson. We stay in the ACC with this matchup. Clemson open 2.5-point home favorites, down to 1.5 now in most spots here. 130 the total. By the way, I would probably lean a little bit under in that last game, and probably the same thing here with Florida State and Clemson. I think it's probably going to be a lower scoring affair. Florida State doesn't mind getting up and down the floor in transition, but other than that, they can play in a half-court style of game as well. And Clemson, is going to play that way going into this. I thought Clemson was a little bit overvalued and overrated coming into conference play. Sure enough, they lost to Virginia Tech, and I was on the winning side of that with the Hokies. And I'm still look. They've been better than I thought they would be, but they're not going to out athletic, I guess you could say, Florida State here in this game, and their length and their size. And I know Florida State's had a couple head scratcher results. The rose is off the bloom a little bit for Florida State. They lost to Central Florida in a stunner when they were double-digit chalk. They didn't really have a very impressive bounce back against Gardner-Webb. They didn't cover that game, and they struggled to really pull away at any point from Gardner-Webb. But I still think they have played, they have the solid results at the early part of the season on their resume as well. They were playing some really, really strong basketball. Leonard Hamilton's team. I just think they've got a better upside of these two teams right here. And I don't think Clemson's home court is any Little John Coliseum. It's not one of these House of Horrors where, wow, one of the strongest home courts in college basketball. I've never considered it that. I think Florida State's the better team, so I'll take points with them here in this spot. What's your thoughts, C-Mac? Florida State, Clemson.
I think I'm with you here. I really want maybe 2.5 or 3. I think Florida State's a bit. I've just been shocked by Clemson, how well they played. They still not a scoring team, but defensively they've been really, really well. This one was a difficult one. I'm with you. I'm a lean with Florida State and the under. I think the numbers are kind of right there. I wish I could get another point or two just to feel safe. And I've been a little bit not disappointed in Florida State, but I don't know. I think they could be better. That's all I mean. They have so much length, size. And who know, as we'll go, I think they'll get better. But I've been a little bit disappointed in them, and that's keeping me off this game just for now. It's kind of one. I got about 3 or 4, as we talked about the last game with Va Tech, that were just borderline where, yeah, they were just tough ones to kind of narrow down here.
Yeah, I think it's a situation where Florida State to me is, I think, just worth a bet because I'm stubborn when it comes to Clemson. I have never thought much of Clemson basketball. And Brad Brownell, the same thing. Not a coach that I really trust here. I just think at this particular point spread range, with them catching a small amount of points, I'll have a bet here for sure on Florida State here at around plus 1.5. Next up, we've got SEC action here. Texas A&M versus LSU. LSU 8-point favorites here at home. 141.5 to 142 is the total in this game. Of course, LSU is a team that got some pretty good news with the announcement that Javonte Smart was going to be available tonight. Obviously, a huge part of that team, him and Trendon Watford, certainly the guys that stir the and Darius Days as well. Those are the 3 big key cogs for this LSU team under Will Wade, and they'll have Javonte Smart on the floor and available for them tonight as they begin conference play. This will be the first SEC game for LSU and for Texas A&M. SEC conference opener for both of these teams. Really, they haven't played anybody this year, LSU, and the one good team they played was St. Louis. They lost by 4. So that pretty much tells you I'm not laying 8 here with LSU in this spot. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. On the flip side here, you've got Texas A&M under Buzz Williams, 5-1 start. They beat Wofford, which was a pretty solid win. Other than that, they haven't really been tested either. The loss was to TCU, 73-55 on a neutral court. I'd probably lean to A&M, but I don't know how good A&M is this year. They're a team that I think's got still in a little bit of transition. Certainly Emmanuel Miller, Savion Flagg, certainly the 2 guys they're going to have to be good for Texas A&M in a game like this. More than anything, and I know this is going to be a clash of pace in this game. You know A&M is going to try to slow it down. You're talking about an A&M team that from a tempo standpoint, 284 in the country, and LSU is going to try to speed it up. I think LSU can get the pace they want, and their defense for LSU is still very, very shaky in my mind. They still give up points. 80 points allowed to Nicholls State in the game over the weekend. Not very pretty on the defensive end of the basketball court by any stretch of the imagination. Remember, the one best team they played, St. Louis, they gave up 85 points in a loss in that game as well. So I am going to have a bet over the total here in this one. A lean to A&M. I'm probably not going to touch that side, but I'm going to have a small play here over 141.5, 142. What's your thoughts, Connor, on this one, Aggies and Tigers?
Yeah, this is a good one. Like you said, Smart's in. That's a big key for LSU. Like you said, both teams haven't really played anybody. LSU, as you said, lost to St. Louis by 4. I think A&M can hang in here. I like that it's gone to 8. Maybe it goes to 8.5 because the Smart news. I know that's probably came in just a while ago. I think they keep this close. I think 8's just a too big a number here. I like what Buzz Williams been doing with A&M. Gritty team. Like you said, they are slow. But I'm with you as well. I'm leaning on that over. I haven't bet it, but I'd lean a little bit. I think they can creep over there. But one thing, A&M, they can really slow it down, and that's just totally opposite of what LSU. They want to get up and down and score. But I think 8's just a little too much in this spot, so I'm on A&M getting 8 here.
Yeah, the reason why I think LSU is going to get this game more to the pace of their liking is because in these kind of games where you've got one team wanting to play half court, one team wanting to get out and run and play in transition like LSU will, usually the team that's favored and the team that is on their home court are the teams that usually get their way. So usually it's a combo with that. And if you have the home team as the favorite, it's usually an indicator that there's probably a decent chance that the home favorite is going to get the pace and the style of play to their liking more than the road underdog will. So
I agree.
That's why I think LSU can get, maybe force some turnovers. Texas A&M has had issues hanging onto the ball at times. Of course, that's going to fuel anything LSU does. You combine that with LSU's very, very leaky defense at times, and I think we can get that over the total, which is where I'm going in that. And I'm with you in terms of the side as well. Lean a little bit to A&M from a side standpoint. Purdue and Rutgers now in the Big Ten. We've got Rutgers 3-point favorites, 136 the total. This is one of my favorite bets on this board today is Rutgers in a bounce back spot here against this Purdue Boilermakers team. I really think this sets up perfectly for Rutgers because, they just blasted themselves out of the gate against Ohio State on the road. Yeah. They were up by double digits. It was an outstanding start in that game. And then the roof caved in. There were some very, very shaky calls. You don't see Steve Peichel really get upset. There were some shaky calls in the second half that went against Rutgers, fueled that Ohio State comeback. Players weren't happy with some of the calls. And you could tell it was a little bit of a meltdown for Rutgers in that second half. The refs, they felt, were kind of not giving them the fair benefit of the whistle in that game against Ohio State. And it sort of carried over into their play on the court. They just, didn't defend as well. They just had a lot of issues closing that game out and just got essentially dominated in the second half by Ohio State, 80-68. That was Rutgers' first loss of the season. Now they're back home. Where, again, the RAC here in Piscataway has been just a dominant home court for Rutgers since Steve Peichel's been there, especially the last couple of seasons. They already have some really nice home wins on their resume. Syracuse, Illinois, in their last home game, 91-88. They defeated the Illini. It's a good bounce back spot for, I think, the better of these two teams, which is Rutgers. I think Rutgers is better than Purdue. I think you can argue Rutgers has the better guard play this year. I don't like the backcourt for Purdue. They've had Carson Edwards in the past and some really good guards. They don't have that anymore, this Purdue team. And Rutgers, they rely a lot more on their inside game, and Rutgers has that physicality, defending in the paint, rebounding to really frustrate Purdue and what they want to do offensively. I think it's a solid matchup for Rutgers. I think you're going to certainly see them focused and highly motivated after just what happened to them in the second half against Ohio State. And they also, remember, they did pretty well against Purdue last year, if you remember. I think they swept the season series. They won at home, and they won against Purdue in West Lafayette later in the season as well. So they've matched up very well with Purdue. I'm going to lay the 3 here with Rutgers. I think they get the job done. C-Mac, what do you think? I lean under as well in this game. C-Mac, what's your thoughts on this one, Purdue and Rutgers?
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that real quick. Yeah, initially I lean under, but Purdue, surprisingly, I don't think has played that great a defense, but I always got to keep them back in my head. We're in conference now, so, kind of check myself, because I think Rutgers can score it with anyone. And like I said, I watched that whole Purdue's last game against, was it Maryland? I think it was 73-70. Anyways, that I don't think their defense is that great. Yeah, it was against them the other day, and I don't think their defense is that great. I'm leaning a little bit towards the over. I don't love it, but I'm with you on Rutgers here at home. And I didn't bet it that day, and man, I was so tempted with Ohio State, and I was kicking myself with 5 minutes to go. I go, wow, Rutgers. We talked about them stepping it up on the road against a solid team in Ohio State. And they just kind of folded at the end. Yeah, there was bad calls, but just the defense got sloppy. Ohio State, they just get one of those rolls. You know how everything just starts going.
Yeah, it was a title win really for Ohio State. The ball got rolling and it was all down
there. Yeah. Just one of those rolls, one of those basketball runs where it's just 15-2, and just happened at the worst time right at the end of the game. But I'm with you here. I like laying the 3. I'm not big on Purdue, and I'm not big on them away on the road. They're just not. They're not a team I want to take. on the road. I don't think they can shoot it that well. I'm here with you. Rutgers -3, definitely.
I'm really surprised too that Rutgers isn't like 5 or 6 home favorites in this game.
Me
Really,
too.
because you're seeing a lot of these Big Ten teams that are good teams that have good home courts. They're favored
home,
by
yeah.
-6 minimum, and you're seeing Rutgers. It's like people still don't give Rutgers the credit they've earned. This is a damn
I
good
agree with you.
basketball team that's exceptionally well coached. And then you look at Purdue. You mentioned their road issues. The neutral court against Clemson, they lose 81-70. They blow just a hideous loss against Miami. They were up big in that game.
Oh.
They completely blow it against the Hurricanes and lose 58-54. And then they get trounced by Iowa in their one previous Big Ten road game this year, 70-55. So this team's giving you no indication they can win on the road against quality competition. Well, guess what? Rutgers is quality competition. Rutgers gets it done to me.
You're right. And it seems like, though, you're right, which now has got me thinking, the under. That's why I'm probably going to stay off this total. At home, as I'm checking the scores, they can really score. These road games, like in Miami, only 58 point. Iowa, only 55. Like I said, the road woes are bad. So maybe you have something there. Maybe the under maybe is the call because they're just not a very good team. They don't shoot the basketball well on the road compared to home. Their home games, they've been scoring pretty well, but not away.
All right, we got a little MAC in-state rivalry now. Next game on the card here with Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan around 4.5, 5-point favorites here, 145.5 the total in this game. I always am a little bit cautious when it comes to laying points in a rivalry matchup such as this one here. But to me, when I look at it with Eastern Michigan, they are the better of these two teams. 2-2 on the season. It's been a rough go for Central Michigan here, Keno Davis, but they have played better after a little bit of a slow start to the season. However, the only win of consequence in my mind was Valpo. You could say that's not a bad win against Valparaiso, but Western Illinois is terrible. St. Francis, Illinois, Division II, Olivet, Division II, and then they went on the road and not only lost to Western Michigan, who really aren't very good, but lost 76-61 in that game. Not a good result at all for Central Michigan because Western Michigan's not all that good. I don't trust them here in this game. Usually, when you got these in-state rivalry games and these mid-major conferences, I like to take the points in that regard, but I can't do that here. I think Eastern Michigan's the better of these two teams. That they did struggle against Michigan State and Toledo. The one concern here is, well, they did get a game in recently because they had been off for 18 days prior to their last game. The layoff's a bit of a concern here, but they got the game in on Sunday, albeit it was a walkover against a cupcake opponent. But I think Eastern Michigan, not a game I bet, but I'll throw it a lean there to Eastern Michigan here, -5 in this one. What's your thoughts, Connor, on Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan?
Yeah, both these teams just haven't been very good. They haven't been good against the number. I didn't really like basically the only thing I like a little bit, and I haven't made it. I liked it at 5. I see it's dropped to 4.5. I like Central just getting those points because I think these teams are even. I don't think Eastern should be favored, at 5 at all or 4.5. Obviously, home court, no fans, you get 3 points automatically if you're pretty even. You know what I mean? That's just history. I think it's more of a pick 'em. So on this one, I'd lean. I might play it. I'd go with Central. If you're going to play this, take Central in the points. I would.
All right, we got a good one coming up here. Wofford and Mercer here. Mercer, 2.5-point home favorites here, 143.5 the total in this game. Two teams that I think very, very, very solid, both ends of the floor. Mercer has definitely increased their pace, increased their tempo this year, 67th in the country in tempo. Very good offensive team as well this season. From an offensive efficiency standpoint, very solid. Greg Gary is doing a really solid job with this Mercer squad. And these are two teams in the SoCon that, they've got visions of contending in this conference, and I think both of them can. Mercer's only loss was on the road against Georgia State, a very good team after they had already beaten Georgia State on Mercer's home floor this season. And this is the first of a back-to-back set. These two teams are going to be going at it again tomorrow. Same two teams, Wofford and Mercer. So I'm passing on this game because I like both of these teams. I don't want to bet against them. These are two competitive teams, I think, two teams that are good. So I'm going to pass tonight. And what I think I might do is bet the loser of tonight's game in the rematch tomorrow. I could see these two teams splitting these two back-to-back games they're going to play today and tomorrow. So I'm going to pass tonight. And then if Wofford loses tonight, maybe I'll back Wofford tomorrow in the rematch. If Mercer loses tonight, maybe I'll back Mercer in the rematch tomorrow. Because, again, when you've got two evenly matched competitive teams, good teams, there's a better chance that you're going to get the loser of the first game bouncing back, winning the second game, as opposed to the superior team sweeping both games. So that's my approach. I'm just going to stay out of this one tonight and maybe look to bet on the team that loses tonight in the rematch tomorrow. C-Mac, what's your thoughts here? Mercer, Wofford.
I think I'm with you. I still like Mercer here, just laying the 2, but I think I'm going to lay off as well. Wofford's a team. I think they're scrappy. They're good enough. The only thing is they're hot and cold. They shoot way more threes than they do twos. I mean, they shoot like, I don't know what it is, 70% of the shots, something insane. And either they're hitting them or they're not. So, like, they're one of the highest in the country, I believe. So they're really hot and cold from behind the arc. And defensively, both these teams give up points. What was the total real fast? Let me get back there.
The total in this one is currently around 143 and a half.
I lean a little bit.
Play pretty slow, but they can be efficient on offense. Yeah,
exactly. So, and that just what we talked about the threes, whether they're hitting or not. I lean a little bit over, but still, I have nothing on that. I think I'm going to agree with you. Initially, I'm still leaning Mercer, but I think I'm going to stay off this one as well. Maybe go at it tomorrow, like you said. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. On we go now to Santa Clara taking on USC. We've got USC 10.5 point home favorites here, 134.5 the total in this game. Andy Enfield's team, 4-1, pretty solid. Their only loss was by 3 on a neutral to UConn. So no shame in that. They have a nice neutral win against BYU on their resume as well. But I'm going to say this, and I know I've said this before, C-Mac. We've done these college basketball closing time shows now for a few weeks. These double-digit favorites in these major conferences, in these non-conference games, in holiday season time, I'm not laying points of this magnitude with USC. I just don't know what we're going to get focus-wise. And they've got a big one on New Year's Eve coming up with Colorado, the Buffaloes, who prior to last night's loss against Arizona, they've been just a house of fire, the Buffaloes. And you got to believe there's some greater focus for Andy Enfield and USC, I should say, going into that game against Colorado than facing Santa Clara here. And Santa Clara can ball. Santa Clara is a solid team this year, 6-1. They've improved. They're very good at the defensive end. I mean, they've been pretty solid defensively. They are coming off a home loss to, albeit a very good Colorado State in my mind, 70-57. Prior to that, though, pretty solid defensive showings. Going to be tested by USC for sure. 40th in the country in offensive efficiency. A USC team that has been able to fill it up, score 91 against Irvine, 79 against BYU. However, UConn, that's seeing them only score 58 in that game against Connecticut, which is, a defensive team that's pretty solid defensively. Santa Clara's going to probably provide more defensive resistance for USC than most of the teams they've played so far. And I could see Santa Clara taking this game a whole lot more seriously than USC. So for me, it's a small bet on Santa Clara here, plus the 10.5. This is just a really, really tricky spot to be laying 10.5 with USC having a big conference game in 2 days on New Year's Eve with Colorado. I don't know if they're going to be fully engaged for 40 minutes to put the boots to Santa Clara. And even if they want to, I think Santa Clara is good enough to hang here. So for me, it's Santa Clara plus points. C-Mac, what do you think about this one?
Real quick, I'll just get back, Elliot. Yeah, I'm leaning Virginia Tech. I think Ian, you are too. But just to get back to him real quick, you can watch it if you want to on the replay. I want a little more points here with Santa Clara with the Broncos. I just don't love 10. SC hasn't played in a while. They could be rusty. I like your look. I'm staying off this one as well. SC's look great. I mean, they whipped Irvine. They beat down these schools, which I was surprised. BYU. They other than the Connecticut game, but Connecticut has a very good defense. I think they're a little underrated, and I think that'll show out as the year goes on. UConn's defense. I think they're really solid on defensive end. But I got to pass. I wanted like 13 or 14 to feel safe on the bet here. So I got to pass here. I lean SC. Lay the 10. But your spot, the whole thing coming up, I don't blame you. Wanted to take the 10 with the Broncos.
All right, we got Nebraska, Omaha, Kansas State, K-State, 10.5 point home favorites here, 11 in some spots now, 136 the total. Yeah, maybe I should be getting off the fade Kansas State train. Obviously, they finally won and covered the last game against Jacksonville, 70-46. Maybe their best game of the season, although they did beat Iowa State as well, which was a pretty good win for Kansas State. And again, 3 wins in their last 4 games, beat Milwaukee, beat Iowa State, beat down Jacksonville. Of course, they had the one really ugly loss, 100-69 to Baylor, but no shame in that. But so there is signs Kansas State and Bruce Weber's team are starting to get things going a little bit. Again, this is a very, very inexperienced group. They've struggled. They've really struggled early in the season at the defensive end of the basketball court. Even offensively, it took a while for them to get it going consistently. But you're starting to see them improve just ever so slightly. I still don't buy them as double-digit favorites against a competent opponent. I think Nebraska Omaha is competent. I mean, they're 2-7. They've struggled, but they faced a really, really grueling, challenging schedule.
Yeah.
Look at the class of competition and the strength of schedule. They played a good Austin Peay team out of Ohio Valley. They played Abilene Christian, who's had a pretty solid start to their season, better than a lot of people thought. Creighton, who's awesome. Drake, who's been a power house this season. Kansas, Colorado, Wyoming. They've played a really tough schedule. They've got 12 days now after that murderer's row of opponents, take a deep breath, get themselves ready and prepared for Kansas State here. And I think they're going to give K-State a game. I like 10.5 here with Omaha. C-Mac, what do you think? Omaha, Kansas State.
I'm with you here. This is one I don't think I'm in a bet, but you can't lay right now, K-State. I know they've played better. But I've watched this team, a few games here. There's just no way I'd lay 10.5. I'm with you. I'd lay that. I'd take the 10.5 with Omaha, Nebraska. Their defense they give up points, but they can at least score. They can get up and down the floor. So I'd lean that way with Omaha, Nebraska, the plus 10.5. I couldn't pull the trigger on taking it.
Yeah, by the way, in terms of turnovers, Kansas State's turnover percentage, 292 in the country. They're not protecting the basketball. And guess what?
No.
That feeds into what Omaha wants. Turnovers into transition points at the other end. I think it's a decent matchup for Omaha. I think they give Kansas. And again, here we go again. Kansas State laying double digits in a non-conference game right before Big 12 play, gets right back into the swing of things again in January. Not the focus spot I want here with Kansas State by any stretch. So I think Omaha plus the points, the way to go here. And dare Kansas State, who've been brutal double-digit favorites, other than the Jacksonville game, have been brutal double-digit favorites this year. Dare them to win by margin. Ole Miss, Alabama, back to the SEC here. Alabama 2-point home favorites, 147 the total in this one. It's an Alabama game, which means you can pretty much guarantee I'm going to bet it over, and that's what I did here with Ole Miss, Alabama over the total. Unfortunately, overs are all I'm betting with Alabama. I thought I'd be betting on this team a whole lot more. And they just haven't been clicking and haven't been firing on all cylinders for Nate Oates so far this year. And really, their play has been maddening and frustrating since he flapped his gums about Coach K. And it's just coincidence, but they haven't really played as well since then, this Alabama team. Bad shot selection, not getting back on defense. Turnovers have been an issue. A lot of sloppy basketball this year from this Alabama team, a team that everybody was pumping their tires before the season, saying they could be a team that makes some noise in the SEC. Of course they could still. You have to remember, it is late December, and how many years do we see these teams that struggle early on, they figure it out late January, going into February, and then they become moneymakers down the stretch because they struggled for so long, they were inconsistent for so long, and then they finally put things together. That could be Alabama. They could be the team we all thought they were late January, February, and maybe that's when they flip the switch and they play to the level I think they're capable of. But right now they're not. So that's the concern here. I think it is a good spot for Alabama. Gosh, I lean that way. I don't trust Ole Miss here on the road. I think Alabama, if they get the pace and the tempo to their desire, they can make things tough on Ole Miss. But I'm not ready to trust them just yet. I want to see them step up here, win a game, before I can trust them. Remember, they've had some frustrating games. Remember, they barely beat Furman on their home court. They pissed one away against Western Kentucky in a recent game. It's just been a team that hasn't been putting it all together, and I want to see them for a game put it all together before I back them. So the lean for me is to Bama. I do like the over, though, 147. Most of the Alabama games have found their way toward eclipsing totals in the 140s. What do you think here, C-Mac, with this SEC matchup?
Yeah, I'm with you here. I want to take Bama too. I just don't trust them. I think this is a spot for them at home. You can just get them laying 1, 2. I'm with you on the over 148. Their defense has just been horrible. And like you said, Oates keeps saying, we're going to get better. We're doing this, taking shots. They're not taking good shots. They're just heaving up threes. They're just, and he keeps saying, we're getting better. We're going to take your shots, but they're not. Ole Miss struggles kind of shooting the ball sometimes. But when a defense like Bama, I think they'll be able to get theirs. And I think Shackelford will score plenty enough. I think we can get over the 148 here. I'm going to agree with you. All
right, liking the over as well, Connor Mack, with us, Ole Miss and Alabama. A real interesting game coming up now in the Big Ten, Northwestern against Iowa. The surging Northwestern Wildcats, Chris Collins, his team is just a house of fire now all of a sudden. Iowa, 11.5-point home favorites here in this one, and the total's been hammered up. Opened 157. It's now in the 160s. So Iowa overs, which have been usually something I look to bet. Certainly the betting market's interested in that, and I wouldn't disagree. I think you'll see a high-scoring game here. The funny thing about Northwestern with Chris Collins this year is we've seen this team really look good offensively to this point in the season. They've increased their pace a little bit. They're not playing blazing fast, but they don't walk the ball up the court like they used to in previous seasons. And they've got some players that are finding it. Boo Buie. How good has this guy been for Northwestern? Miller Kopp, Ryan Young. Outstanding, being able to produce some offensive production for them. 6-1. You got to love the way they've played here in Big Ten play. Michigan State, albeit that win over Michigan State at home looks less impressive by the day with just the absolute turmoil and free fall that Tom Izzo Spartans are in right now. But nevertheless, 79-65 win over Michigan State. 74-67 road win at a pretty solid Indiana team. And then in a nip and tuck back and forth game against Ohio State, they pull it out 71-70. This is a really good Northwestern team right now. They're going to be tested by Iowa offensively, but as I'm going to say many times with this Iowa team, they're not playing any defense. No lead is safe. Iowa could be up by 5 or 10 points in this game with 5 minutes to go. Do you trust them to close the door? I don't. This is still a defense that's got issues. Other than Purdue, they held the lead that night, but against Minnesota the other night, had a lead, couldn't hold it. And then Minnesota ends up winning in overtime, 102-95. Defensive issues, shortcomings continue to plague this Iowa team. They haven't played much defense under Fran McCaffrey for all the years he's been the head coach here. And I flat out don't trust them. And their confidence now, having lost 2 of their last 3 games against a Northwestern team that's just oozing with that confidence right now. So I'm going to take the doubles here with Northwestern. I understand people are saying Northwestern's due for a clunker, and Iowa's certainly not going to be in a bad mood after blowing it to Minnesota. But winning the game and winning by 12 or more, are 2 different things here. And I don't know if Iowa's capable of doing that against this Northwestern team that's playing good. So I like Northwestern. I do like the over, but I put pause on that because I bet 158. And now it's 161. It's getting a little pricey for my liking, but I would still lean in that direction. C-Mac, what are you doing here with this one in the Big Ten, Northwestern Iowa?
Yeah, real quick on the over-under. I got to lean with the over as well, but 160 is getting there. I mean, all their overs a hit except the Purdue game, which I took as the best bet on here. But I'd still lean that way here. I think they're going to be able to score at will on Northwestern. But I'm with you. I've been on Northwestern. I had them at home getting the 3.5 and a little bit money line the other day against Ohio State because I don't think Ohio State is ready to really win on the road either. Especially in Big Ten, these Big Ten teams just aren't good on the road as they are at home. But man, it's got to be by 12. Some people, like you just said, the clunker. This is the game, and it could be. But I'm going to go down. I want to take 11 here tonight, then lay it with Iowa. I wouldn't feel comfortable laying that. So I'm on the 11 with Northwestern. Let's see how they play. They played pretty well on the road earlier. It's small, and they weren't bad last year when they weren't as good as playing as good as ball as they are now. But I got to take the 11 here. Give me the 11. But everyone's on Iowa, because they are going to be pissed off. But they don't defend the 3, and Minnesota was raining them at the end of that ball game. I was on Minnesota. They were just draining them. So, yeah, lean the over as well, but 160 is getting up there. But teams like Iowa and Gonzaga, 160, especially against another team that can score, that's even just flying by.
Well, you talk about not defending the 3. That's also why I think it's a good matchup for Northwestern. Northwestern's 14th in 3-point percentage.
They can shoot it.
And here's Iowa, 222 in the country, 3-point D. That's a good matchup. That's Northwestern, who are shooting threes, who are making threes, and Iowa's giving them up here. So, Northwestern's got the 3-point perimeter game right now to keep themselves in it here in this one against an Iowa team that's struggling. I understand the spot and situational bettors are going to like Iowa. It's just the fact of the matter. They're off a crushing loss. They're at home, desperation. And certainly talent-wise, if they're hitting everything and Iowa's got one of those, they're going to shoot 50, 55% from the field for the game, they can cover. For sure they can. But again, I caution you just betting the spot and betting a situation, because I know a lot of those same people thought Michigan State was in a good spot last night against Minnesota, after the losses they've suffered, and Minnesota, the big win, let down. Wasn't anything like that. Minnesota dominated Michigan State. So the spot and the situational handicap didn't work. Didn't work in that game last night. Doesn't mean it's going to work here either with Iowa. So I like Northwestern. Looks like Connor agrees with me, and we both lean over the total as well. On we go now. We've got Dixie State and Gonzaga, 37.5, 38-point home favorites. Gonzaga here, as you would expect, just massive chalk, 166 the total. I do like the over in this game, but because Dixie State does play fast, they're actually a tempo team, an above-average tempo team. That's what you get from Gonzaga. But I wanted to split it up between first half and full game over, because we did see signs last night of Mark Few, opening the bench up late in the game, taking the starters out, and unveiling the bench, putting them in late in the game against Northern Arizona last night. It's a back-to-back for Gonzaga, so I just feel a little bit more comfortable in case a lot of the points come in the first half and not as many in the second half of this game. From a side perspective, it's tough. I mean, I think if you like Gonzaga, you got to take them first half. They could certainly roll over this Dixie State team and then maybe, again, get up big and the bench takes over to close out the game down the stretch. But obviously Gonzaga has just they are just such a joy to watch, C-Mac. I mean, there are not many teams where I say, you know what, they're just an absolute pleasure to watch them play every single night, regardless of the opponent. And Gonzaga, it's just beautiful basketball. It's unbelievable, unselfish, smart, intelligent offensive basketball. And that's why they're the number 1 team in the country in offensive efficiency. All of these guys, and hell, they didn't even have Jalen Suggs last night. It was a late absence from that game for against Northern Arizona. And they still didn't skip a beat offensively with Nembhard and Joel Ayayi, who's been outstanding, the junior. Of course, they've got their senior leader, Corey Kispert, continues to be good. Drew Timme in the low post. I mean, it's just a team that's got inside scoring, outside perimeter game.
They got it all. Yeah.
Pace. Just kill you in transition if you dare turn the basketball over. They got it all, Gonzaga. But it's reflected in the point spread, obviously. C-Mac, what do you think here? Dixie State, Gonzaga.
Yeah, I'm with you. These got to be broken up, the totals, over unders by halves. I did it last year, and it's just working out. They give the whole bench the second half, and they won't cover these big numbers, and they're not. And this could be another one tonight. If you like Gonzaga, it's big. It's 21.5. Lay it first half. I would not go full game. You can kind of get both. I've done it a lot. I did it last year, and I've already done it once this year. Zags first half and full game, take the 38.5 with Dixie, because as you've seen in these games, they just empty the bench and they let them, they already have a huge lead. Just let them score kind of with them, and it's even. They both score about 40 in the second half. So they split your bet like that. I did it last year with them multiple times, and I think this is another spot too. Zags first half, that'd be the only look, and the full game though, Dixie sneak and get there and probably lose by 35 or 30. You know, last night was 30. So that's only my look.
All right, South Florida and Memphis. We've got Memphis 9.5-point home favorites here, 137. Somehow this game's getting bet up on the Memphis side. I don't see it. This is a team that is just in a bad way right now, losing games they shouldn't. They're on a 4 or 5 game ATS losing streak. They've failed to cover in 4 or 5 straight games. Penny Hardaway's blasting his team publicly for their poor play as of late. And yet people thinking, again, this is the spot handicappers now. Whoa, Penny Hardaway's just read his team the riot act. They're suddenly going to win by double digits. So hold on now. South Florida's at Brian Gregory. Again, this team with Yetna and company, I like what I'm seeing from this group. They're competitive. They dig in. They play solid basketball. They went on the road, beat Cincinnati recently. South Florida's not an easy team to beat. They've find ways to hang in games. They're pretty solid on the inside. They could frustrate Memphis a little bit in this game, in my opinion. I like the points here with South Florida. This is the point spread role I like South Florida in. On the road, underdogs, they have a knack of hanging in games like this. And to be honest, their opponent right now, Memphis, they're not playing with any sort of confidence at the moment. It's one of these situations where when I look at Penny Hardaway, he's recruiting his ass off here at Memphis, but he's not coaching them up very well. Where are the X's and O's? Where's the game plan? Where's the adjustments? I'm not seeing it from this Memphis group. I think South Florida hangs in this game. Give me the 9.5. What's your thoughts, C-Mac? South Florida, Memphis.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like this one a lot. I don't know what they see. Yeah, Penny Hardaway, unreal recruiter. I don't think he's that great of a coach, obviously. I'm just surprised. I like it. I love getting 9.5 here. South Florida hung in there, beat Cincinnati, stayed close with Wichita their last few games. Had a few games where they got a little bit blown out, but they've gotten better. Rhode Island and Vodtech earlier in the year. But they've played better. They're scrappy. And you want to give me 10, just about 9.5? Yeah, give me the Bulls here, 9.5.
All right, we're in agreement with South Florida. All right, we wrap it up with on the main board, at least, with another AAC matchup, Houston against Tulsa. The Cougars, 8.5-point road favorites, 126 the total. So I took a rare shot betting against Houston on the weekend with Central Florida plus 7.5. And UCF's covering for like 38 minutes, and then they let it slip in the last 2 minutes. And I'm like, well, that was my one dip my toe in the water trying to fade Houston. I'm not doing that again anytime soon. And you know why? It's because Kelvin Sampson, this team is just, they're so fundamentally sound. They don't beat themselves. And when it comes time and crunch time to elevate, make good shots, get stops, shots and stops. That's what I always like to say at the end of a close game. Houston gets that. They get the shot. They make the shots. They get the stops on defense. And that's exactly what we saw. And they turned, I believe, a 2 or 3 point game with about 4 or 5 minutes left into a 8 or 9 or 10 point win it was against Central Florida on the weekend. And they just get the point spread cover. That's what Houston can do because they're a very good team. I think their offense is extremely well balanced this year, Houston. When you look at all the different guys that can contribute to them offensively, it's good guard play. It's good inside presence. Quentin Grimes, Marcus Sasser, Caleb Mills, DeJon Jarreau. This is just a team where anybody from that group can beat you. And most of the time, you get multiple of those players I mentioned contributing and stepping up and playing well in the same game. So it's just a very difficult task to beat this Houston team. Now, the class, in my opinion, of the AAC, going to be very, very difficult to beat them. Tulsa, I'll be honest, has impressed me at times. They played better basketball for Frank Haith than I thought, but this is a big, tall order for them against this Houston team. If you like Tulsa, I don't, but if you like Tulsa out there, if you're watching and you like Tulsa, take them first half because Houston has had some slower starts in games, including, of course, the Central Florida game. I find they haven't always played their best in the first 20 minutes, but boy, they turn it up in the second half, it seems, every single game. And I worry about the same script unfolding like what happened against Central Florida, where, Tulsa could hang close, hang tough for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, maybe even 30. But that back half of the game, Houston just takes over at both ends of the floor. So I'm not going against Houston again. And like I said, I think if you like Tulsa in this game, I would definitely prefer a first half bet on them than full game. What's your thoughts, C-Mac, Houston, Tulsa?
I was with you. I went with UCF, and man, they had that lead, and 1 point there. They lost by 9. They hung in there. But this is a Houston team. I mean, not only are they top 10, they could be top 5, and they're one of the best defensive teams in the country. And we'll talk about Tulsa real quick. They're really good defensively. And I think there's legit merit to this 126 taking the under, which is very low total. But I mean, this is the team that held Texas Tech doesn't score well, 53. A very good Boise State team, to 58. And other than that, Boise, I was on that game. They've covered. The Alcorn State, they missed by 1 point. They won by 33. But they've been able to cover these ones. So that's why I'm going to lay it with Houston at 8.5. And I lean the under as well. I might take that as well. This Houston team is for real. The defense is for real. Kelvin Sampson has these guys playing really, really well. And I was thinking stay under because Tulsa's slow, methodical. They're scrappy as well. I've took them multiple times this year, and I like them. I would love them. They need more points here, I think. I think Houston pulls away and wins this one. The defense just suffocates Tulsa, so I'm on Houston here.
Yeah,
under.
I like the under as well. I still might bet, and I don't bet many unders, especially at 126, which is where the total is. But we only got to 117 in that 63-54 win for Houston against Central Florida on the weekend. And those two teams play the same pace, and they're both good defensively. And so far, that's Houston and Tulsa this year. Slow pace, 300s in tempo in the country, and both of them 36th or better in defensive efficiency. So again, this might have a hard time getting into the 120s this game. And if it does get into the 120s, it'll be barely into the 120s, I think. So
I agree.
Yes, definitely an under or pass. I don't want an over. Don't be baited into this low number in my mind to bet it over. I just think it's going to be slow paced, good defense on both sides. I think Tulsa in particular, they really could struggle against a good elite defensive team like Houston. I know they've had some offensive games where they've surprised people, but this is the best defensive team they've faced all year. I think it'll play out that way on the court tonight with these two teams. All right, so that's the main board. The added board is a shit show because I think a couple of these games have been canceled. I know the Coppin State Rider game that was scheduled on the added board has been canceled. I was leaning over and Rider minus the points, but that's been canceled. The only other added board game I considered, I didn't bet it, but I did consider laying the big wood with Baylor, 34.5 against Central Arkansas. They're outmanned Central Arkansas, and Central Arkansas is going to play fast, and that means there's going to be more possessions and more opportunity for Baylor to score more and have the ball more and maybe pull away and increase the margin even more. So I do lean a little to Baylor, minus 34 against Central Arkansas. People are betting that over, and now it's in the high 150s. I know they're going to play fast, Central Arkansas, but Baylor isn't going to play fast. And as much as the pace is going to be there for Central Arkansas, do you trust them to score against an elite Baylor team defensively? I'm not so sure. So I don't know if I agree with that total being moved up like that, but I do lean a little to Baylor minus 34 in that one. That's the only lean I have on the small added board schedule today. Connor, anything from the added board that you took a look at?
No, like you said, nothing really there. A couple of cancellations. My only one was Baylor too. Thought about it. I think they cover it, but it's like Gonzaga. It's Baylor. I think they do cover this. It's just holding your teeth. I just don't lay 34 points. It's difficult. Every once in a while I'll do it. I just don't love it. I think they can easily name the score, but sometimes these second halves, like Gonzaga, you bring in the bench and, they win by, 30, 31. So I'm going to pass on it, but I lean Baylor.
Yeah, that's the only thing I considered with the added board. How many points can I tease on basketball, says Sebastian Cornwell? Well, one, I don't do basketball teasers, and I honestly wouldn't recommend anyone doing them. But if you had to or you wanted to, the only teasers I honestly bet are NFL, and they have to fall into that 2-team 6-point teaser range where you get plus 2.5 up to plus 8.5, or minus 8.5 down to minus 2.5. You cross all those key numbers. That's the positive expectation. Talk about positive EV. Those are the teasers that make sense to me. Those ones in the NFL. College football, not so much because, again, you could get blowouts. Usually the lines aren't quite as sharp in college football, so there's a lot more variance. College basketball, same thing. I find, but you can get, there's some books that offer 3-point teasers, 4.5, 6, 7. They go by point. There's some that offer 5-point teasers. 7-point teasers in
Teaser,
basketball,
yeah.
some even 10-point teasers, 3-point teasers. So there's a lot more, whereas football, it really starts at 6, and then it goes up from there. 6, 6.5, 7 is usually the common many points you could tease in football. In basketball, it's a little bit more of a wider range. Some sites, some books have 3-point teasers in basketball, 4, 5 points, 6 points, 7 points, 10 points. Even some have 12 or 14. So that's what you're looking at essentially with basketball. It depends on the book, and often many of them offer a wide range of number of points you can tease a basketball game to.
You there?
Yep, I'm there. All right, we're ready to go. Yeah, we're going to keep it going. Before we get to best bets, which are going to be obviously college basketball, look, NBA and college football bowls, they're going on today. So let's give you some opinions on that. We'll start with NBA, and then we'll turn over to football. NBA, no analysis because we're going to wrap up in a couple minutes, but I'll just run down quickly what I like. I like Boston Celtics at a pick 'em against Indiana, bounce back against the team that beat them the other night. I think you get the Celtics bouncing back strong with a win there. I like the Bulls Wizards over. The value just keeps on losing it here. This was 234 at one point. It's 238, but these are maybe the 2 worst defensive teams in the NBA right now, or among them at least. So this should be a point palooza. Chicago, Washington over the total. I lean a little to the Wizards too because I've been fading the Bulls and it's been working. But it's gotten up there 6.5 now to lay with Washington, and they're winless too. So, but I would prefer the Wizards than the Bulls and the over in that game as well. Golden State, Detroit, a little bit on the over there. Cleveland -3.5 against New York. I think I've been impressed with Cleveland. I think it's a small number for them at home against the Knicks. I don't trust the Knicks after beating Milwaukee. When do you see the Knicks play 2 good games in a row? Very rarely. I think Cleveland beats them there. Milwaukee, I like them minus the points. Playoff revenge is 3-0 so far this season. All the teams in playoff revenge have won so far. Clippers beat Denver. Mavericks beat the Clippers. Blazers beat the Lakers last night. And I think the Bucks will win. And maybe likely no Jimmy Butler tonight for Miami.
I wanted to ask you, is he still?
Yeah, he's still out.
Okay.
And plus, I could see Miami just saying, you know what, no Butler tonight, but we're playing this Milwaukee team again tomorrow night. It's a back-to-back. They're playing the same 2 teams playing tomorrow. Maybe we just hold back on Jimmy Butler, and then tomorrow is the game we get. So I think this is Milwaukee's spot. They got embarrassed by New York. They're amazing straight up in ATS off a loss. So I like the Bucks there minus the points. Clippers first half and full game against the Wolves. Okay, but just simply because Minnesota stinks and the Clippers are off one of the most embarrassing losses you could ever have against Dallas. I think Kawhi plays or not, I don't care. I think they just show up and put a butt whipping here on this Minnesota team. Denver, Sacramento has been bet over the total, and I agree there. I think you'll get 2 teams playing fast. Sacramento certainly is. Denver, very good offensively, still a little bit shaky defensively, back-to-back as well. So I could see the defense suffering a bit. So that's the other one I like, Denver, Sacramento over the total. So there's some NBA plays for me tonight. Connor, NBA, what do you like there on the NBA board?
I'll go real quick. I didn't know if you wanted me to answer. Yeah, I'm the same with you, Ian. I don't do teasers. I only do NFL teasers. Rarely a college football game. I've never done it for basketball. But like you said, you can, and you can get all types of, for basketball, 3, all types of numbers up to 10. But I've only stuck with the NFL, rarely do it. Every once in a while college, and I keep it short. I keep a few teams. And like you said, I do it every once in a while, those key numbers, but I try not to go through 0 too much unless I really like it. So yeah, that's my only kind of theory on the teaser.
That's a good principle to have for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. The NBA here, I'm with you. I like the over, but 238.5 is getting there. I took it a little earlier, same at 234. I like Detroit here and the over. Golden State, there's no way. Rose should be playing tonight, and Blake. So there's no way. I learned a lesson the other night, laying 3.5 to Chicago.
Like your death to win the game, needing a 3 at the buzzer to win, to beat Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah,
I think this is a good one with those guys in. It was last night, the Hawks 223. I think there's value with this at 227. I like both. I like the points with Detroit and the over here. Next one, I like Toronto a bit. They're getting 1.5. I've never been a Sixers guy. We'll just wait on them. I think they're so up and down, even with the coaching change. Knicks, Cleveland. Cleveland's 3-0, riding hot, but I'm going to pass. I don't see any value there. This one I'm going to pass as well. Initially, I still like the Heat. I'm just not going to bet it. As you said, they're going to play back-to-back. Butler's not in. If you gave me a free bet, I'd take Miami. Butler, nothing. But I'm going to stay off that one. Orlando's play good. And I've been my OKC, covered last night, almost won it. I'd lean with them again, +6. I know it's back-to-back, but I don't love it. I'm passing there. I'm with you here with the Clippers. Now that it's 10.5, I don't love it as much. Minnesota's going to be they're an interesting team the rest of the year. I think they're going to have some good ups, some really good games, and some real bad ones, as we saw against the Lakers. Because they got some talented young guys, and kind of a sneaky roster. But I think it's Clippers here. I just watch it at 10.5. New Orleans, Phoenix. I leaned Phoenix a little bit. And lastly, I talked about it last night. I still like Sacramento. I'm going to wait till the end of the night to maybe bet this. I thought this would be Denver, as they won last night. We thought, they ended up winning by 13, but they were blowing them out. I wanted like 4.5 here or so. And I was going to take Sacramento at 2. I don't love it as much. Maybe take a money line, little piece money line here with the Kings, but I might lay off. I might put it out later if I play that one. I just don't like it at 2. I thought Denver might be 4.5, but the book's catching on to the Kings, I guess, playing better basketball.
Well, the good news, and you mentioned Karl Anthony Towns. He's out week to week, so he's not in that game tonight against
Is he
the
out?
Clippers.
Okay,
that's definitely, and that is we know how important he is, and just how vital he is to the Timberwolves. That's another thing that concerns me too tonight against the Clippers, who again do have some size down low to be able to pose a threat, especially now that they got Serge Ibaka on the team. Yeah, he could. Serge Ibaka is that one guy I think is going to have a big game tonight for the Clippers. Talk about props, player props, and I'll have some posted on Twitter. I did good with the player props. We had DeLon Wright last night. We had Karis LeVert. We needed overtime, but it got there with him.
Got there.
We got, I think Lillard went over as well at the end against the Lakers points. So it was a good night with the props overall. Rudy Gobert falling short on his props was shocking to me.
Surprising. Yeah, I was a little surprised.
Didn't come in last night. But yeah, there's no doubt props. Serge Ibaka tonight for the LA Clippers. Definitely one I would look at from a player prop standpoint. All right, that's NBA. We're not done, though. How about some bowl action, guys? College football. We're back to bowl games every day now for the rest of the week, now through Saturday. We're going to have bowl games every day. We've got 2 today, Cheez-It Bowl, Miami, Oklahoma State, followed by the Alamo Bowl, Texas, Colorado. Right now, we've got Oklahoma State around a pick'em, -1, total 62 against Miami. I'm on 2 bets here, Oklahoma State and over the total. Tylan Wallace is playing, which is huge for Oklahoma State. Great receiver. That makes a difference. 2 defensive ends, starting defensive ends out for Miami, opted out.
Yep.
Their defense not very good to begin with. So still remember 62 points being hung on them by Sam Howell and North Carolina in their final regular season game. One thing about Mike Gundy, look, the Oklahoma State offense has not been great this year, but you give them time to prepare for a bowl game, and suddenly they look like the old offense again for Oklahoma State. I think they're going to have a good game today. They score points, and they're not going to completely shut down De'Aaron King in Miami. They'll find their way to some points, but I do think Oklahoma State does get the win. 34 to, I would say probably, 35 to 31, something like that. I could 35-28. I do think it gets over 62, and I like Oklahoma State. Connor, how about you with the Cheez-It Bowl?
I'm with you. I'm with Oklahoma State here. I like the short number 1.5. And I'm with you as well. I just not loving it. I lean the over as well. I'm just a little bit scared this could fall short, but I'm with you. I think it just creeps over as well, because I think Miami can score a bit too. But I like Oklahoma State -1.5.
Yeah, and you should get paid. Oklahoma State's not the extreme tempo team they were earlier in Gundy's career. Miami certainly is. They play extremely fast. So should have some decent pace and tempo offensively when both teams have the football here. So that's another thing that factored into me liking the over in that one. Colorado, Texas. We've got Texas 7.5 point home favorite, 66. if you look at the rosters and the schedule of these two teams that they faced this year and the rosters, this should be a bargain on Texas. But there's a reason why all the money's come in on Colorado. You've got like 7 or 8 opt-outs for Texas, and they're key players. They're a starting left tackle. There are multiple safeties, multiple defensive backs. One of your best pass rushers, Joseph Osai, he's not going to play in this game at the linebacker spot. One of their leaders and their captains on defense as well. When you got all these guys bailing from the ship for the bowl game, how much excitement and enthusiasm truly is there for Texas for this bowl game? I know Sam Ellinger is going to play, and he's always
he's still there.
try to win, and will win. He's good enough to do that maybe against Colorado. But to me, there's just so many question marks. Colorado does have a couple key injuries on defense going into this game as well. That's concerning a little bit, but I understand fully. Like, I don't love Colorado, but I have a small bet on the Colorado side here. I think I got 9.5, 10. As long as it doesn't get below 7, that's still the side I would lean with, Colorado. Look, Tom Herman's bowl record is undefeated, straight up in ATS. But if you go back and look, those were marquee games, New Year's games against teams that excited them. Auburn, LSU, big-time teams. And they were underdogs in those games. All right? Underdogs in every single game. Now they're a big favorite. It's a completely different role. And this could be an unfocused, unmotivated favorite here tonight in this game for Texas. So a lot of people just betting Texas, Herman in a bowl game is undefeated. It's a different situation, guys. Totally different. Like, they're in a big game against a team that excites them, and they're getting a lot of points. Now they're against Colorado. They're in their same old state. They didn't, not a special destination. Colorado won't excite them as much. Guys opting out left and right. Oh, and by the way, they're laying more than a touchdown. So they're not getting the 7 points or 10 points that they have in years past when they played Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, or they played LSU, Auburn, some of these teams that they've played in recent years. So it's a totally different bowl point spread role for Herman. And I think he's going to be challenged to get his team up for this game. I really believe that. What's your take here, Connor? Colorado, Texas in the Alamo Bowl.
I'm in agreement with you. You listed already all that I was going to talk about, all those opt-outs. I mean, really, Texas, especially on the defensive side of the ball. That's why on the total, I just don't love it. It's 65.5. I think this could go over, but I could see weirdly it staying under. Colorado's got a pretty good defense. Texas has played a kind of surprising unders, but with all that personnel out, I know it's next man up, it's college, but still, the best guys being out in multiple positions, especially defensively, safeties, linebackers, corners, and then on offense, the line. I didn't think Texas was that great offensively either this year. They have Ellinger, he's it to me. So I'm on Colorado. I think the value is it's still over a touchdown. So you're good there. It's still 7.5. I got a small bet with Colorado as well at 8.5. So nothing big, but I think they hang in here. In a close one. Colorado was a pretty good team this year. I mean, they had some lapses, but especially you talk about that last game with Utah, where they were up and then just steamrolled 4 touchdowns. Utah scored and beat them. And you talk about Herman, those were in big games. I can remember last year that big game they won, and those were a lot of them were as a dog. He's got the Tom Herman. He's a dog. They win in these bowl games against Utah. And they went out there and whipped Utah. But they're a big favorite here. All those opt-outs. How excited are they? Another not great year, for Texas. They have all that money in the state, in Texas, in Austin. All the alumni. They got all that cash. I mean, it's unreal. And just another shitty year. So I'm a small bet on Colorado as well.
Yeah, that's just the way. Again, if everybody's healthy on both sides, this is a cheap number on Texas. But and I lean over as well. But the thing is, I worry that this is kind of like Hawaii, Houston. Houston didn't give a rat's ass about that bowl game, and they totally pretty much a no-show from the beginning for Houston. Kind of worry about that for Texas. And if one team's just not going to play and have their heads in it, it's hard to get a game over this kind of total. And that's kind of like what we saw with Hawaii, Houston, which stayed under because you just didn't get Houston mentally geared in to play a bowl game that they didn't care about. And I worry about that a little bit with Texas tonight. So we'll see. I mean, if Tom Herman fires them up and we see signs early that they are fired up and you're seeing intensity, it could be trouble for Colorado. But That's a big if. I mean, I think where there's smoke, there's fire, Connor, and the smoke is 7 or 8 opt-outs for Texas. That can't be a good sign. That tells you right there. Does anybody care about the bowl game tonight when 7 or 8 key starters have said, you know what, goodbye, we're out of here? And wide receivers as well now have been added to the mix in terms of guys opting out for Texas. So it's dicey to me, and that's for that reason I'm going to take the points here with Colorado. Plus, I think they're excited. They haven't been bowling in a couple of years. You got a first-year head coach, Carl Durrell. I think the Sam Neuer guy at quarterback's got some capability and some upside for the future. I think he might use this as a springboard into next season. So there's reasons here, I think, to like Colorado, and it looks like CMAC and I agree with that one. Tomorrow, we've got the college basketball show again at 3 p.m. Eastern, so we'll do the same thing. We'll break down some NBA and not NBA because we got the NBA show as well right after that, but college football bowl games at the end of the CBB show tomorrow. We'll break some college football bowl games down again, just like we did today. So there you go. We got it in, NBA and college football. Bonus opinions there on those two sports from Connor and I.
Yeah.
Before we get the best bets for college basketball, CMAC, any word from our sponsors today?
Oh, yeah. Go to mybookie.ag. Hit promo code PubSports. If you use debit or credit, you get 50% off. If you use Bitcoin, you get 100%. So Bitcoin, you put in 1,000, they give you 1,000. And the debit or credit, you put in 1,000, they give you 500. And go to bulksupplements.com. Enter promo code PubSports. You get 10% off to your order. You get all those vitamins, all that crap. Get jacked up for the fall. So that's it.
There we go. Best bet time. Connor Mack, where are you going to take us with our best bet for college basketball tonight?
I had a few. I looked at South Florida, but I'll stick with Rutgers -3.
There we go. Rutgers -3 against Purdue. Best bet for Connor Mack. Let me see what I'm going to go with here. Let's do Ole Miss, Alabama over 147. Okay. That's where I'm going to go for best bet. It's right up there to me. One of my top 2 or 3 bets on this card. Ole Miss, Alabama over 147. I think Alabama gets the pace to their liking. Ole Miss hasn't actually really faced a ton of these extreme tempo that'll fly up and down the court teams this year. It could be a little bit of a culture shock if Alabama gets their way from a pace-wise. They just got to make their shots, though. And sometimes they get the pace, they get the look, and they don't make the shot. That's happened a lot to Alabama this year. If they are draining shots tonight, and hopefully this is one of those nights they are, I think we can get that game over the total. So for me, Ole Miss, Alabama over 147. That is going to be my best bet for the closing time show, college basketball. And Connor liking Rutgers -3 against Purdue, and I fully endorse that one. It's another one of my favorite bets too tonight. So Rutgers and the Alabama over. See if we can get a 2-0 result with the best bets. That'll wrap up the show. Before we do, though, I want to remind you, next week, first week of January 2021, we expand the NBA show and the college basketball closing time show to 3 days a week. So we're going to be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with NBA closing time at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific starting next week. And we're going to be on college basketball closing time Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday next week at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And it'll be that way from January right until the end of the NCAA tournament for the college basketball show. And it'll be January right until, June, July even, with the NBA show. So we're here for the long haul at Pub Sports Radio to deliver you some winners throughout the NBA and college basketball season. So looking forward to the expanded schedule of shows starting next week, definitely. And we fall into that groove, that rhythm, 3 shows a week with both the NBA and the college basketball closing time show right here on Pub Sports Radio. And a reminder, check out Razor Sharp with the horse racing programming at night that he's doing, the live betting shows throughout NFL games, college football games that are on this channel, the UFC crew with Mo and Boston Nick and all that. Everybody doing great programming on this channel. Make sure you check it all out right here at Pub Sports Radio. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Tuesday night. Good luck with all of your plays in college basketball, NBA, and the bowl games. We'll see you again tomorrow, Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here for another edition of the College Basketball Closing Time Show. Good night, everybody. Enjoy the games and good luck. See you tomorrow.